Man, Palpatine really gave Anakin the spark notes of the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, didn't he? I'd love to see that scene again where he tries to explain this whole series to him on top of it. That space fish opera would have to last a really long time. For the record, I want to like this. This does so much stuff that I and a great many people have been wanting for ages from a Star Wars property. It focuses on expanding and exploring the Night Sisters and views of the Force that aren't Sith or Jedi. It delves into the corruption and hypocrisy of the Jedi Order. It brings cortosis into live action, which is a really interesting idea from an action perspective. It investigates what it would mean for the Jedi to have oversight, and somehow it manages to make none of that work. First of all, if you're going to explore the Night Sisters, how are you not going to use, I don't know, any of the interesting aspects of the Night Sister lore? The Night Sisters have Ica, which might be the most interesting concept in canon, that they can turn the ethereal and ever-present Force and concentrate it into a physical liquid. They also seem to be able to pull objects from thin air and have a completely different way of using the Force to interact with technology than the Jedi, but instead, let's trim that out entirely and have them focus on being a group rather than a single entity that we won't delve into anyway, because we've got to focus on two annoying kids squabbling over nothing for 30 minutes. And that's what makes this show such a difficult watch. There will be these moments of greatness and really interesting ideas, followed by nonsensical scenes that completely waste that potential. It's so goddamn up and down in terms of quality, it gave me nausea. For instance, there is some of the best lightsaber combat we've seen in a while. When it's one-on-one, and whenever there's a group fight, there's at least two people standing around doing nothing, and the camera work, the blocking, the flow of action does nothing to hide this, so it just feels incredibly forced. What the fuck were you doing? Just hit him over the head with a rock at this point. We have some fascinating characters in Sol and Quimir, and their actors give amazing performances, but we are forced to spend the majority of time with May and Osha, two characters who are so poorly fleshed out that May at one point completely abandons her entire motivation, only to pick it up again 5 seconds afterwards. There are some amazing costumes and creature designs. The Acolyte helmet is fantastic, the way it looks like a twisted smile is perfect. But a lot of these designs and effects are wasted on things that either show up for 2 minutes and immediately disappear, or Basil, who I don't understand why he's even in the show at all. He contributes nothing that you couldn't replace with 4 cents, and yet so much time is wasted on him. It has wonderful cinematography. The shot of the Acolyte's first proper introduction is amazing, but it wastes that cinematography on a bunch of random, unimportant stuff, like some weird bird rats on a beach. Why are you important? Do you have the Force? Fuck off! It has some amazing dialogue that tells us so much about a character with so very little, but has an extreme amount of over-exposition, when it could have visually shown us this information in a much more interesting way. We get the great David Harewood finally saying what we've always wanted someone to say of the Jedi Order as a whole, that it's this corrupt, weird system masquerading as a religion that has far too much authority. And I really love that he says, when you look up to your heroes, you don't have to face what's right in front of you. Because, and this is just my reading, that really hits the nail on the head with the Jedi. That whilst there were great individuals, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Obi-Wan, in focusing on these standout, amazing, inspiring characters, we fail to see the overarching failures of the Jedi institution. However, that great line falls flat because this isn't a show about making systemic critiques of the Jedi Order. This isn't a show that's interested in how human beings deal with negative emotions, and that while it is a noble intention to suppress our negative emotions, it is ultimately naive to think we could do so forever. It's not about the fact that the Jedi have an insane number of responsibilities, from peacekeepers to diplomats to spiritual leaders to xenologists to anthropologists, each of which deserves their own categorization rather than jumbling into one role. It's a show about a bunch of stupid individuals whose problems could easily be solved with a post-it note on a fridge. And I would kind of understand if that was the point. that the Jedi are so arrogant they struggle to communicate basic stuff. It would lack nuance and be a simplification of the problems, but I could understand that. However, the post-it note problems also apply to the Night Sisters, so that doesn't really hold up. And secondly, so much stuff in this show happens because the plot demands it. Why did Sol slap some cuffs on the Acolyte and break his saber? You can't kill an unarmed man and make sure he can't arm himself again. God, it's so mind-bogglingly dumb. And I think that is its main problem. In spite of all the good stuff I've said, it has a lot of just fundamental problems that hold it back. Like, besides characters being stupid, there are also a number of other plot holes. For instance, saying Sol killed the other Jedi, despite so many Jedi encountering May, attempting to kill both Torbin and Indara, and also, Sol was very publicly on Coruscant at the time of Indara's death. How in the world are you going to fabricate enough evidence to pull off that stupid-ass explanation? In terms of pacing, it forces a bunch of interesting ideas into the final episode to ham-fist setting up Season 2. For instance, it spontaneously introduces weird MacGuffin the Vergent, which is boring, completely uninteresting, and results in nothing. The resolution rushes through so much stuff that nothing feels properly paid off. It attempts to have this twist that May was actually justified in her actions, but also introduces her with multiple instances of her attempting to kill random civilians to distract the Jedi and just to cover her tracks. So nah, get out of it. You're a terrible person who is just as bad, if not worse, than the people you're hunting. It even feels weirdly fan-servicey. Like, it has Plagueis show up in the most random Force cameo of all time. It has Ki-Adi-Mundi show up just to be a wrong idiot, which fits with how hated that character has become in supplemental lore. It has lightsaber bleeding, which is something people have been wanting in live action for ages, and some mechanical aspects of Legends, like lightsaber whips and cortosis. But it doesn't quite understand any of the reasons why fans wanted this stuff. Like, lightsaber bleeding is a fascinating idea that we still haven't seen done right outside of the Charles Soule Vader run, where Vader has to overcome all of the positivity a Jedi has put into his lightsaber crystal, with his hatred and rage, and it is a fascinating moment of him rejecting any chance of happiness he has left because he is so consumed by his darker aspects that he refuses to believe that there could be anything else. In this, Osha gets a bit angry and the lightsaber changes colour. And I know you can reinterpret this idea, but man, what a waste of a truly fascinating concept. I truly don't begrudge you if you like this. I genuinely think The Phantom Menace is a great film. You probably should not put stock in anything I say. And if you got something meaningful out of this outstanding stuff, as I've said, there are things I liked here. Also, side note, if your problem with this show is due to casting, you need to put some work into self-care. Try to center yourself, check if truly the most loving thing you can do in this situation is hate on someone for being a bit different to you. But that awfulness aside, I think this show tries to do too much, and so the ideas that are well executed get subsumed by those that aren't. Like, a show about the Night Sisters sounds amazing. A show about a Jedi who is implied, at least to me, to have suffered domestic abuse and felt like the Jedi rescued him from that life is fascinating. The exploration of some of the first Sith and how they evolve is great, but putting them all together doesn't work and creates this massively convoluted and nonsensical plot that fails to juggle all of these ideas. And so, ultimately, this show doesn't hold up, especially in comparison to other Star Wars stories. Even as the long-awaited full critique of the Jedi Order, this show gets outclassed. Tales of the Jedi did a better job than this. The prequels did a better job than this. Ahsoka has a great many problems, but Baylan Skoll by himself does a better job critiquing the Jedi Order. Hopefully this leads to better projects, and maybe Season 2 will fix all of my problems, but man, I was so disappointed in this. Look man, I didn't want this. In fact, I was genuinely kind of looking forward to Season 2, because I think a lot of the guff and auxiliary characters that don't work are gone, and given how much setup for the next season they forced into this one, I hope they would at least be leading to something interesting. I wanted to see what they would do once they'd finished setting up this world. You can't just give us the setup and not the payoff. This was clearly meant to be an introduction to something, and there was enough creativity and interesting ideas here that even though I called out the bad writing and lack of focus, I was going to keep going with this series. I felt this was a step in the right direction that shook up the status quo, and now I guess we're going to take a step back. What an absolute waste.